Hi, my name is Rebecca Bradley, and today I'm going to give an overview of some of the things that I have gleaned from this class, along with my own personal opinion about ethics from a Christian standpoint. First, I'd like to go over some biblical passages that reflect, in my opinion, understanding of a Christian ethical viewpoint. The first passage would be Philippians 2:12 through 13, New Living Translation. Dear friends, you have always followed instructions when I was with you, and now that I am away, it is even more important. Work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. This scripture confirms what I believe God has asked us to do in regard to ethical decisions that we are opposed to in this world. As a believer, I am held to a different set of standards than those in this world, because I have Christ in me, and I need to be making decisions that reflect Christ in me rather than my own selfish desires. This is also our best tool that we have to be a light and a witness to those who do not believe, and to show that Christ is indeed in us. The second passage that I think reflects a biblical understanding of ethics from a Christian standpoint would be 1 Peter 4:19. So if you are suffering in a manner that pleases God, keep on doing what is right and trust your lives to the God who created you, for He will never fail you. This passage reminds me that sometimes the choices that I make in regards to ethical decisions may bring me ridicule in the public eye. But the suffering that I have in this world for standing up for what is right in God's eyes, I will be rewarded someday in heaven. We have to remember that it is not others that we are aiming to please, it is God who we are aiming to please. The third biblical passage that reflects understanding for me would be Romans 13:3. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right, but in those who are doing wrong. Would you like to live without fear of the authorities? Do what is right, and they will honor you. I really like this verse because it reminds us that there is also a law of the land, and there are rules set in place by those who are in authority in our state, city, and also in our country. And those laws are set by them, and we have to be obedient to those laws because God has also put those people into authority. And for instance, we need to obey a speed limit set in place, for it is for our safety that they put those limits in place. And we just need to be reminded that those in authority are in authority for a reason. And even though we may not agree with everything they stand for, we need to respect them. Reproductive technologies is a area in ethics that talks about different ways to conceive children biologically without having sex. And all these procedures here are listed. They have positive and negative qualities about them. I think when I am put into a position where I could not conceive a child naturally, there are some questions that I feel you need to ask yourself. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to I like to talk about what an embryo is. A lot of these procedures listed on the last page here have different ways of discarding embryos, and I think it's important to realize what an embryo is when you're making decisions for reproductive help. An embryo is an unborn or unattached offspring in the process of development, and in particular in human offspring, during the period from approximately the 2nd to the 8th week after fertilization. And this I got from the online dictionary. So an embryo is a fetus. When does life exist? So at the point of egg? No. Just a husband's sperm? No. It would be once the egg and the sperm are fertilized together and it creates an embryo. Reproductive technologies was never really an area where I considered to have any Christian ethical concern, but after learning more about these different methods, I can see that there are some methods that could be considered unethical to some who are pro-life, considering some of these reproductive options kill embryos that are not used. I do feel that an egg that has been fertilized with sperm to be a form of life, and this is what scientists call an embryo. I am not an advocate of some of these other forms of reproductive technologies, mainly because they fertilize multiple eggs and only insert some and discard the rest. This, I feel, is a way of discarding life and is not acceptable.